Hey friends, welcome back to the channel, or if you're new here, thank you so much for joining me today. If you're somewhere in your 50s or 60s and you're starting to think seriously about retirement, or maybe you're already dipping your toes into those golden years, but you're wondering how to make the absolute most of this next chapter, then this video is truly for you. Today we're going to slow down and talk about something really special and heartfelt. We're diving deep into life lessons from 70-year-olds. Real wisdom straight from people who have already walked this path ahead of us, who have lived through the ups and downs, who have looked back on their lives with clear eyes and wish they could sit down with their younger selves for a long, honest conversation. I've been blessed over the years to work with hundreds of families, many of them now comfortably settled in their 70s and even beyond. And when we sit together and they reflect on what they would tell their 50 or 60-year-old selves, certain powerful themes come up time and time again. These aren't just quick financial tips, although money and planning do play an important role. These are deep, soul-searching life lessons about time, about health, about relationships, about purpose and meaning, about letting go of what no longer serves you, and about how to make the second half of your life not just survivable, but truly rich, peaceful, and fulfilling in ways you might not even imagine right now. Some of what I'm going to share today might feel a little familiar if you've watched other videos or read articles on retirement, but I promise you, hearing these lessons spoken from the hearts of folks who have actually lived them, who have felt the weight of their choices years later, it hits different. It lands in a deeper place. So I want you to grab a nice cup of coffee or tea, find a comfortable spot where you can really listen without distractions, maybe even take a few notes if something resonates strongly, and let's walk through this together. Imagine a wise 70-year-old friend or neighbor is sitting right across the table from you, sharing their heart openly because they care about you not making the same missteps they did. One of the very first things that comes up almost every single time in these conversations is this beautiful yet sobering idea of the 3 stages of life, and making absolutely sure you don't miss that magical window where health, time, and money can overlap in the best possible way. You see, when these 70-year-olds look back, they often describe life in these overlapping phases that help make sense of it all. In your 20s and 30s, most people have plenty of time and usually pretty good health on their side. But money is often tight because you're just starting out in your career, maybe building a family, buying your first home, figuring out who you are and what you want. Everything feels like an adventure mixed with a lot of hard work and learning curves. Then you move into midlife, your 40s and especially your 50s, where for many of us, money starts to flow a little better. As your career matures, promotions come, savings begin to build, but suddenly time becomes the scarce and precious resource. Work demands pull you in so many directions, kids need your attention in new ways, aging parents might start requiring more help, responsibilities at home and in the community pile up. And it can feel like there are simply never enough hours in the day to do all the things your heart really wants to do. You might find yourself saying things like, "I'll do that when things slow down," or "We'll take that trip after the kids are out of the house," but the days keep marching on. And then later on in your 70s and 80s, many people finally have more time after retirement and hopefully a decent amount of money saved up from years of effort. But health can start to shift in ways that are sometimes unpredictable. Energy levels aren't always what they were. Joints might ache a bit more. Doctors' visits become more routine, and bodies don't cooperate quite as easily for those big adventures you once dreamed about. But here's the key insight these 70-year-olds want you to hear loud and clear. There is this sweet spot, this magical overlapping period, usually somewhere in your late 50s through your mid to late 60s, where you can still enjoy relatively good health, you have growing financial security from your working years, and you start to gain more control over your own time as kids leave the nest and career pressures might ease a little. That's the golden window where you can do active, meaningful things that require energy and mobility. You can travel to places that involve walking tours or hiking light trails, pick up or restart hobbies that need some physical effort like golf, dancing, gardening on a bigger scale, or even just exploring new cities without worrying as much about fatigue. So many 70-year-olds I have spoken with say with a touch of sadness in their voices, that they wish they had recognized that window sooner and not kept putting off the trips, the experiences, the adventures, the quality time with loved ones. One gentleman named Robert, now 74, told me he kept delaying a special hiking trip with his wife to the mountains they had always talked about. Work was busy, then there was a wedding to pay for, then another project at the office. By the time they finally made the trip in their early 70s, his knees weren't cooperating the way they used to. The altitude affected him more than expected, and it was a lot harder than he had imagined in his dreams. He looked at me with tears in his eyes and said if he could go back to his late 50s, he would have made that trip happen when he had the energy, the means, and the vitality to truly enjoy every moment of it. The lesson here is powerful. Don't wait for some mythical, perfect time because that magical stage doesn't last forever. Start planning and taking action on some of those meaningful things now while you still can move freely, breathe deeply, and soak it all in without limitations holding you back. This idea of the stages of life naturally flows into another big piece of advice that keeps surfacing. Understanding the 3 types of time in your life and making sure you're not neglecting one of the most important ones. There's the time you spend on your career or work, which for many of us has been a huge focus for decades. There's relationship time with family, friends, and loved ones, which nourishes your heart and soul. And then there's renewal time or recovery time, the part that so many people in their 50s and 60s tend to overlook, and it ends up quietly affecting everything else in their lives. Renewal is what refills your energy tank. It's those walks in nature that clear your mind, the workouts that make you feel strong and alive again, the hobbies where time just flies by in the best way possible. Whether that's gardening, woodworking in the garage, fishing on a quiet lake, reading books that inspire you, playing a musical instrument, painting, or even something more active like cycling or light rock climbing, if that brings you joy. I remember working with a client, a man in his mid-50s named David, who had gotten so caught up in his career that he had completely set aside his love for cycling, something he did a lot when he was younger. Life got busy with kids' activities, deadlines at work, and all the usual responsibilities. When he finally started carving out time for longer weekend rides again, it didn't just improve his physical health in measurable ways like better blood pressure and more stamina. It transformed how he showed up everywhere else in his life. He had more patience with his family, more joy in his daily interactions, more creativity and focus at work. He started thinking about his identity like a big pie chart with different slices, one for family, one for career, one for faith or personal growth, and he intentionally began expanding the slices that brought him renewal instead of letting the work slice take over the entire pie. These 70-year-olds emphasize over and over again that you simply cannot pour from an empty cup for very long. You have to prioritize that renewal time now, in your 50s and 60s, so that you enter retirement with the energy and enthusiasm to enjoy your relationships in whatever work or purpose you choose to pursue. What renews you personally? What activities make you lose track of time in that wonderful, fulfilling way? Make space for them before retirement because they become even more vital later when other demands might change. Start small if you need to, maybe just 30 minutes a few times a week, but be consistent because those small investments compound into a much richer life. Closely connected to protecting your renewal time is learning the art and wisdom of saying no more often as you move through your 50s and 60s. In your younger years, saying yes to opportunities was often the right move. It helped you grow your career, build your network, create experiences, and shape the life you have today. But as you approach retirement, the 70-year-olds I speak with say it's not only okay, but truly wise to start saying no with more confidence and grace. No to extra commitments at work that drain your energy without real reward. No to social obligations or volunteer roles that don't bring you genuine joy anymore. No to things that don't align with your current values, your energy levels, or the vision you have for your later years. This isn't about becoming selfish or shutting people out. It's about respecting your own finite time and energy and protecting that renewal space we just talked about so you can show up fully for what truly matters. One woman in her early 70s, let's call her Margaret, shared a story that really stuck with me. She used to feel so much guilt whenever she turned down requests to join another committee at church or help organize community events. She was a natural giver and wanted to be there for everyone. But over time, she spread herself so thin that she had almost no energy left for quiet evenings with her husband, meaningful time with her grandkids, or even peaceful moments alone to read or rest. Her stress levels were high, her marriage felt distant at times, and she wasn't enjoying life as much as she wanted. When she finally started setting clearer boundaries and saying no to the things that weren't essential, everything shifted for the better. Her stress dropped dramatically, her closest relationships improved, and interestingly, she became even more present and helpful in the fewer things she did choose to say yes to. It's a hard shift for many of us who have built our identities around being helpful and available, but it is incredibly liberating once you practice it. Start small, maybe with 1 or 2 gentle no's this month, and notice how it frees you up. Your future self and your loved ones will be so grateful for it. Another profound lesson that echoes through almost every conversation with 70-year-olds is that time becomes infinitely more valuable than money as the years go by. You hear the old saying, time is money all the time, but these folks who have lived longer will gently correct you and say that's only partially true. Money, if managed wisely, can grow. You can earn more of it, invest it, watch it compound over time. But time only moves in one direction. Every single day that passes, you have a little less of it than before. In your 50s especially, this decade is pivotal because the decisions you make right now about how you spend your hours will shape how the rest of your life feels. Be very intentional with your time. Don't keep trading precious, irreplaceable moments for things that won't matter much in the long run or that you can find alternatives for. I had a client who was a very successful executive in his field. He was bringing home great money, which allowed the family many comforts, but he was traveling constantly for work, missing birthdays, school events, and quiet family dinners. When he finally turned 68 and reflected back, he realized with some pain that he had missed so many important family milestones. His kids were grown, and while they loved him, he felt he barely knew his grandkids in the deep way he wanted. He told me with regret in his voice that if he could go back to his 50s, he would have negotiated harder for more flexible work arrangements earlier, or even stepped back from certain high-profile promotions to be more present at home. Money is important for security and for providing opportunities. There is no denying that. But don't sacrifice too many irreplaceable moments chasing more of it than you truly need for a good life. Look for ways to use the money you are building to buy back time where possible, whether that's hiring help for yard work or house cleaning, outsourcing tasks that drain you, or planning special experiences with loved ones while everyone is still healthy and able. The memories you create now will be the treasures you cherish most later. Health is another area where the regrets run deep and the advice is consistent and urgent. So many 70-year-olds wish they had taken better, more consistent care of their bodies back in their 50s and 60s. Not in some extreme, obsessive way that takes over your life, but through sustainable daily habits that build resilience. Moving your body regularly in ways you enjoy, eating foods that truly nourish you rather than quick processed fixes that taste good in the moment but cost you later, prioritizing good sleep, and managing stress before it manages you. It's not about achieving some perfect physique or looking a certain way for vanity. It's about having the physical freedom, mobility, and energy to enjoy your retirement years without being limited by preventable issues. One man I spoke with, now 72, shared how he used to brush off minor aches and pains, skip regular checkups because he felt fine, and didn't make exercise or better eating a real priority. He figured he could deal with it later. By the time he reached his early 70s, he was facing some health challenges that could have been managed or even prevented with earlier attention. He looked back and said the small, steady investments in health during your 50s pay massive dividends later on. Simple things like walking every day, perhaps lifting some weights or doing resistance exercises a few times a week if your doctor approves, choosing real whole foods more often, staying hydrated, and getting annual checkups. Your 70-year-old self will thank you every single day when you can still get around easily, play with grandkids without too much strain, and travel or pursue hobbies without constant worry. Start where you are today. Even small changes add up over time and can change the quality of your later years dramatically. Relationships take center stage in so many of these reflections from 70-year-olds. They often say they wish they had nurtured their friendships and family bonds more intentionally throughout their 50s and 60s. It's easy when work and busy schedules dominate to let connections fade into the background. You exchange quick texts or see people at holidays, but the deep, meaningful time slips away. But when retirement comes and the structure of work fades, those relationships become your primary support system, your source of daily joy, laughter, and meaning. Make the effort now to schedule regular coffee or lunch with old friends. Plan consistent family gatherings that aren't rushed. Invest in your marriage or partnership if you have one through small, regular acts of connection. One couple I worked with started a simple monthly date night tradition in their late 50s. Nothing extravagant, sometimes just dinner at home with candles or a walk in the park. But the consistency mattered. They said it kept their bond strong through the empty nest transition and made their retirement years feel like a second honeymoon in many ways. Don't forget the incredible power of mentoring or giving back in small ways. Many people in their 70s talk about how sharing their knowledge, stories, skills with younger generations or in their community brought a deep sense of purpose. Whether it's volunteering at church, coaching a local youth group, helping neighbors, or simply being a steady, loving presence for grandchildren, it keeps life meaningful and gives you a reason to get up excited each day. On the financial side, the advice from these 70-year-olds is practical, but always wrapped in heartfelt wisdom. Don't wait any longer to get serious about your retirement planning if you haven't already. If you're 50 or older, take full advantage of those catch-up contributions to your retirement accounts. Review your investments carefully to make sure they match your current risk tolerance as you get closer to needing the money. But more importantly than the numbers, think deeply about what money is really for in your life. It's a tool for freedom, security, and creating experiences, not the end goal itself. One 72-year-old gentleman told me he spent far too many years worrying obsessively about every little market dip instead of enjoying the blessings he already had. He wished he had trusted the long-term process more and focused on living well along the way rather than waiting for some perfect financial number. Another common thread is the regret around holding on to stuff in lifestyles that no longer fit the current season. Big houses with rooms that sit empty most of the year, expensive recreational vehicles or boats that get used only a handful of times, continuing financial support for adult children long after they should be standing on their own. Letting go of these things earlier can free up enormous amounts of money and mental energy for what truly matters. Downsizing your home or decluttering isn't about losing joy or memories. More often, it brings a wonderful sense of freedom and lightness. One couple sold their large family home and a second vacation property and used the proceeds to pay off debts and create a dedicated travel fund. They now rent beautiful places wherever they want to explore, instead of being tied down to maintenance and taxes on properties they barely used. Purpose after retirement is something many 70-year-olds say they didn't plan for enough. Work provided structure, identity, and a reason to get going each morning for so many years. When that ends, some people feel a bit lost without a thoughtful plan for their days. That's why it's wise to start exploring new or old hobbies, volunteer opportunities, part-time passions, or even learning new skills in your 50s and 60s. That way, retirement feels like an exciting new chapter, full of possibility, rather than an empty ending. Forgiveness and the ability to let go of past hurts came up more often than you might expect. Life is far too short to carry heavy grudges or resentments from old family disagreements, work conflicts, or personal disappointments. Releasing them brings such profound peace. One woman in her late 70s described how finally mending a strained relationship with a sibling in her 60s was one of the best decisions she ever made. It enriched her later years in ways she couldn't have predicted and allowed her to focus on love instead of old pain. Staying curious and committed to lifelong learning is another gem. Your brain thrives on novelty and challenge. Read good books, take classes online or in person, travel to new places even if it's just day trips. Try new foods or activities. It keeps you sharp, engaged with the world, and young at heart no matter what the calendar says. And one of the most touching pieces of advice that almost always surfaces is to express your love and appreciation more freely and often while you still can. Tell your spouse, your children, your close friends exactly how much they mean to you. Don't assume they already know. Write notes, make calls, have those heartfelt conversations. Those words and moments become treasures that your loved ones will hold on to long after you're gone. Friends, these life lessons from 70-year-olds aren't shared to scare you or make you anxious. Quite the opposite. They are meant to empower you while you still have time to adjust your course, to prioritize what truly matters, to build habits that will serve you well, and to create a retirement that is not only financially secure, but deeply satisfying and full of meaning. You have worked hard for decades. You deserve to enjoy this next phase with confidence and joy. Take it one step at a time. Pick just one or two of these ideas that spoke to you today and start implementing them this week. Maybe schedule that renewal activity you've been thinking about. Have an open conversation with your spouse about how you're spending your time. Review one aspect of your health routine, or reach out to an old friend. Small, consistent actions lead to big changes over time. If this video touched you or gave you something valuable to think about, I'd be so grateful if you gave it a thumbs up, shared it with a friend or family member in their 50s or 60s who might need to hear these lessons, and considered subscribing to the channel for more thoughtful conversations like this one. We're all walking this journey together, learning as we go. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for spending this time with me today. You've earned the right to a wonderful retirement, and I truly believe the best is still yet to come for you. Take care of yourself, be kind to others, and God bless you. I'll see you in the next video.